All right, we are live. In case you don't know, I am Ro from the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast. Thank you very much for joining us if you are in waiting. And yeah, we have a special Scare Live tonight. Special for many reasons. All my co hosts dumped me, but that is okay because I feel them in my heart. Yes, I do. But we got a special show for you guys tonight. If you guys are into horror, especially music that makes you go jump in the night, this is definitely the show for you. I've got one of my best friends, my brother from another mother, who is joining us. But first, let's hit that intro, and we'll be right back.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Woo, that is spooky. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. Frank Velasquez is in the house. Thank you very much, Frank, for showing up to the chat. I know you and Shanti had a really great show last week, and we're going to talk about it real fast with our very special guest. We also have Charles Westcott from Conversations podcast. That is amazing. I love that our Red Fivers are here, and I know a couple of Red Fivers are also doing some lives and just finished up their own live shows. So we need to make sure that we hit them up as well and hit subscribe. Check the rest of us out on red5network.com if you guys are itching for some quality content, some nerdy talk. Red 5 Network is the place to be, but I digress. I'm going to bring on my buddy Kane, and I grew up with him. I think I've known him since fifth grade, maybe even third grade, but let's bring him on because I want to talk to him real fast about scary music.
I love scary music.
Don't you love scary music? It's so spooky.
Oh, yeah. It's the best, man.
What's up, my brother?
Not much. Just keeping busy with the biz. It sounds like you guys have been doing really good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for making yourself available. I see the keyboards
Absolutely.
behind you, and this is going to be a lot of fun. We're talking scary music, but thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. We got Science Fictionary. That's probably my good friend. Hold on a second. I am going through here and checking out everybody in there. Science Fictionary, Andrew Gore.
Hello, all.
My good buddy. And who else is in there? Hey, Frank, I know you and Shanti did that episode last week, and episode 65.
Wow.
We talked about, or you guys talked about movie curses. And Kane, I wanted to ask you, we talked about The Omen, Poltergeist, The Crow. What do you think about that? You talked a little bit about some, and that's actually what started our whole spookiness going. Chantel and Frank did a really good job last week talking about movie curses. But what do you think? You believe in all that stuff? And I know, The Crow was first and foremost in my mind. Brandon Lee, went through what obviously was killed accidentally in that film. But what do you think about all that stuff?
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be friends with Lawrence Mason, who played Tintin in The Crow, and obviously, when something strange like that happens, something that impactful, where you're losing, one of the core members of the cast, it's pretty traumatic, and it can be mysterious.
Yeah.
I don't know if The Crow per se is a curse or just misjudgment of props. But the idea of, like, say, Poltergeist or The Omen, where some deaths are just a little bit more mysterious. The
Yeah.
Crow feels more like an accident, whereas Poltergeist feels more like a curse. I guess if I could put it that way.
Sure. And then obviously The Crow had the added stigma because the Bruce Lee family
Hmm.
had, that whole Lee curse
Correct.
where,
Correct.
obviously, Brandon's father, Bruce Lee, passed away also mysterious circumstances
It's
in a
very tragic.
movie.
It's
It
very
is
tragic.
very tragic. It's kind of, I mean, that's one of the things that makes it even more spooky, don't you think?
It makes it spooky, and it makes it well, obviously more real.
Yeah,
Especially for those that have worked with the people, or that have an admiration for the person, be it the fans or family or friends or whatever. Losing someone in such a mysterious and tragic way lends itself to different possibilities of thought, be it supernatural or just hyperlogical, whatever you want to go for. But as far as like the curses go, I mean, it's horror movies. It's
yeah,
fun.
right.
We enjoy. There's a certain group of us that just love the macabre and the mysterious, and
Absolutely.
we're part of that.
Yeah. I don't know what our therapist might say about that, but whatever.
What
So
they get
there's
paid, they're
they
fine.
get paid, they get fined. So there's a couple of people that are noticing that your voice is very familiar, and
Oh,
especially on the
yes.
Scare Scuttlebutt podcast. And obviously, we run the Red 5 Network promo on some of our Red 5 Network podcasts, but we also do our little shtick that we call Sentry Mode,
Hmm.
which you are the voice of as well.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you for that.
give the folks a little Sentry Mode taste.
Sentry mode. There you go.
Wow, there you go. Awesome. For
Um,
sure, for
no,
sure.
it's always a blast to be able to do voices for the shows, and to be part of it, because it's just, I mean, you've built such a great community of people, and just in the chats alone, it's just to see people happy and excited to be here. That's kind of what it's all about for me when I see your show, and when I see people do this for a living. It's really impressive.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, yeah, we're having fun. It's funny, Charles. You recognize the voice, but for sure. So let's get into a little bit of your background.
Okay.
What have been some of your musical influences? And I know, let's back up a little bit, even to the what are some of the things that you do professionally? And obviously, again, it's so weird to talk to you like on this platform because
Mhm.
we've known each other since like what, third grade, but
We were really young, very young.
very young. So, what are some of the things that kind of solidified like your career and inspired some of the things that you've been doing?
Well, I think with anything, especially if it's something you really have a passion for, no matter what it is. I mean, it's hard being in the entertainment business, but at the same time, look, you're going to work hard for whatever you're going to do. You might as well work for something you love. And for me, it was music and entertainment. And so I just kind of kept doing it. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by creative people that I could glean knowledge from, and participate on projects, doing small soundtrack gigs or voiceover gigs, or acting, whatever was needed for the production. And it was just persistence and just constantly like doing some free gigs, doing some charity work, but at the same time getting your work out there. Always produce something, always be a part of something. Find a group of people to work with. If your passion is creating music, then find a group of people that are making movies that need soundtracks. Or if you want to practice, take a movie you like and score it yourself. Turn the sound off and just sit there and play. And a lot of times that's what I would do to practice.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And so, and obviously, knowing you, I know some of your influences. But why don't you tell us a little bit about who do you look up to musically, and the kind of movies that you're really into because of that?
Okay. Well, I mean, it all started with John Carpenter. I was about, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old, and Halloween was on TV. And naturally, my mom was like, "You can't watch that." But back in the day, we knew how to sneak in and like get the channels in, and find ways of making things happen, like watch TV. So I watched Halloween, and just in the opening credits, I was so impressed to see that John Carpenter wrote it, directed it, did the soundtrack for it.
That's right.
And it was like, oh, that's awesome. You can do all that to make a movie. And then obviously I watched the film, and I was like, this is amazing. just the raw. I mean, at 9 or 10 years old, you can't define a film like you would now, but it was something special, and it was something that touched me and made me kind of go, I want to do that. So ever since then, I was fortunate enough to run into you, and we made films when we were young, and we used a lot of other people's music, like let's see, James Horner is another one that I find
Sure.
fantastic. I mean, the Wrath of Khan soundtrack is one of my favorite soundtracks. It's just Khan's theme is so powerful, and it's such a, I don't know. I pulled up a couple of YouTube videos and stuff if we want to go over them later, but yeah, I'd say John Carpenter, James Horner, and Tangerine Dream are
Oh
really
yeah.
my main influences. Uh,
And
when
there's
people,
one more. There's one more that I never could pronounce. Vangelis or Vangelis.
I'm going to butcher it. 50% of the people are going to say it's Vangelis. The other 50% are say Vangelis. I'm going to say the guy that did the music for Chariots of Fire and Blade Runner. Uh, but yeah, no, he's also another one that's fantastic, especially with the resurgence of the new Blade Runner film and that super synth sound that's finally coming back from like the 80s. But now with today's production, it really, I mean, some of those pads are just so massive and powerful that you can just hit like one note and you're just like,
Well, that's funny that you should say that because Andy, and thank you very much, Andy, for joining us. He's got that comment regarding horror music in movies today and how there's not a lot of it. And I haven't seen a lot of horror movies lately. Obviously, growing up in the '80s, you see a lot of the slasher films and movies like that. But
right.
what do you think of the current horror music scene? What's up with that?
I think, well, the cool thing about today's day and age is you can take your phone, and with a good story, you can film a movie. And at the same time, you can take GarageBand or other free programs and create a soundtrack. So the availability to create is a lot more abundant now than it was, say, when we were kids, when we had to get these expensive keyboards and go into studios to do multi-track recordings, or you had this crappy little 8-track or 4-track tape recorder, and
Oh,
you tried to
God.
sync all that stuff up, and that was, it was a disaster. But
Damn
nowadays,
kids don't know how hard we had.
man, we had to duct tape everything and walk up hills with broken glass. But it was just it was a harder time, but at the same time, I think it caused you to innovate more.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think nowadays, with everything being kind of in the box, it takes away some of that. The soundtracks that I find myself being mostly attracted to are those that started from like a simple sine wave and did their sound engineering and produced their own sounds. Something you just like Hans Zimmer is another one I should have mentioned that just is a fantastic composer and telling stories with sound in such a simple way. Like, I was a big fan of the original John Williams Superman theme, but I'm not going to lie, the theme that Hans Zimmer came up with, it moves me just as much. I mean, I hear it and it gets me. As soon as I hear that little piano piece, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's interesting. Frank mentioned Jack of all trades, and obviously John Carpenter, a big inspiration with you.
yeah.
Directing, putting this movie together, the music, everything. And, coming from a guerrilla filmmaking background, I mean, we did that when we were growing up. We learned from some of those directors, and obviously it's not like we were like, ooh, look at us, we're doing everything. It's like we did everything because we had to.
exactly.
And
It
you're
was a
talking about
necessity.
it, right? And you talk about innovation. The way that I used to edit and do, A/B roll edits with 2 VCRs and 1 VCR that recorded, it
Oh,
wasn't
man.
digital, it was analog. You had to rewind the tape and then practice the dissolve beforehand, and it's just, you talk about innovation. I mean, it really hones the skill technically. And now, I mean, we got everything on here, and
Right, exactly.
and I think for someone like us, I think it's a lot. There's a little learning curve with the technology in each piece of software, but it's like a cakewalk. See what I did there? Cakewalk. Isn't that
I got you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was just noticing what you call it, Charles' comment on The Thing for, and
Ennio Morricone.
Morricone. Yeah, I'm gonna screw it up. But yeah, that's another one. But the thing about that soundtrack, and which was really cool, is it had a Carpenter feel to it. You know, he used the profits and the real classic synthesizers to create the soundtrack for it, and that in itself lends itself towards a Carpenter-esque feel. But yeah, I agree 100% that, and also for Starman, I forget the gentleman that did the soundtrack for Starman, another John Carpenter film, which was a totally different genre, but that synthesized kind of simplistic feel kind of brings in that real, yeah, exactly, that, like you said, so simple but so creepy. And that's exactly true. Less is sometimes more for those kind
Yeah,
of films. You know, if you've got these huge orchestrations where everything's like blah, 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 and you're just sneaking down the hallway, you know, it's just like it doesn't fit. But sometimes
right.
one little bling can set your hair on
Sure.
edge, you know.
Absolutely. So Andy's got another comment regarding why is it that the most suspenseful music is often the one instrument repeating a theme? For instance, Jaws. I mean, that is a perfect example of, Jaws does that. Friday the 13th does that.
Halloween, all that stuff.
Halloween, all that stuff. So what is it about that? It's just kind of like the psychology of the scare.
I have a really good answer for that. Just out of a freak circumstance today, we had our cleaners come through, and they bumped into our home pod, which was just listening to some Halloween music. So as soon as they hit this, I was hearing dun 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 dun, and the cleaning lady was like, "Adios, mira!" She's trying to hit the buttons and turn it all up, and she instinctively knew that theme. I'm like, "Do you know what that's from?" She's like, "It's scary." And I'm like, "Okay," and I explained to her what it was. It was actually a movie theme, and but that just hearing it, even not knowing where it was from, freaked her out.
That's
So that
funny.
tells you something about, that raw primal repetitive
Sure.
pulse that
And
we all have, a biorhythm if you want to call it.
that's exactly that. That's right. I think you hit it on the head. The biorhythm. It's that heart pounding. You're living with it, but it's still inside you. And when you're
Hmm.
watching something scary and you hear the same thing, it accentuates it.
And it lets you know
Um,
that something's going to go down,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
be
That's
it a
awesome.
piano or a it's all,
Very,
it's just that signature sound that, if it's placed right and composed right, even Darth Vader's theme, you hear that, you instantly know what it is. Same with
absolutely.
Halloween. You hear that theme, you know exactly what it is. Apparently, even if you've never seen the movie.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the testament to these artists that are creating these wonderful pieces of music that go along with the wonderful pieces of film that
Hmm.
are all encompassing for us nerds. The Jason theme, Michael Myers. I mean,
I think if you have, like I said, if you have a passion for something, and you're working hard at it, you'll succeed. And whether your idea of success is being able to compose for blockbuster movies, or just being able to compose for projects, the art of composing is what matters. So don't think because you're not composing for some major big film that you're not successful. I do a lot of low budget stuff. I do a lot of commercials and a lot of B films and stuff like that, and I love it. There's a lot more freedom and creative um, interaction with a lower budget film than where you're in a Hollywood film where you got your A, B, and C, and that's what you got to stay in.
sure.
But don't get me wrong, I appreciate the big paychecks too. But at the same time, like I said, the freedom you get working with more independent films, and with maybe not the higher paying jobs, but the more interesting and the more learning experiences you'll have with those jobs, if that helps.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a bit of a freedom to explore, a freedom to kind of experiment as well. So I hear you. And it goes with, I guess, with every creative endeavor that you do, whether it's music, video, editing in my case. Yeah, I'm sure. But let's get down to some nitty gritty and
Okay.
see if we can maybe hear a tune before we continue the discussion. What do you got?
Okay, let's see. I have recently recomposed. I don't know if you guys, if you're into John Carpenter's music, which I assume you are because you're here.
Exactly.
From Halloween 3, the track called "Chariots of Pumpkins" has always been one of my favorite John Carpenter things to listen to, whether I'm working out or walking or something. It was just that drone, something about it. It was always one of my favorite tracks. So I reproduced it just for my own personal enjoyment. But I will share it with you here as soon as I can figure out these buttons. Let's get these buttons going. Okay, Chrome tab, Jared's Pumpkins, share the audio. See, science. All right, let's see if this works. Okay. So yeah, can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Well, then here, this is my version of Chariots of Pumpkins. I think I have it too loud. Let's see if there's a volume on this thing.
There it comes.
No, it's happening. It's happening, man. I just want it louder. Let's see if there's a way to make it louder. Doesn't this thing have a volume on it? Oh, it has a pause.
The volume is on the bottom, right above the O in horror on the screen.
Just about the O in horror on the screen.
So yeah, if you guys want to check out, he is all his wonderful stuff is on SoundCloud. The Caniac.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can say I'll put a link in the chat so people can come check it out and see what's up. And I'm sorry it's playing so low. I anticipated more volume.
We can hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's more important to hear what the people are saying anyway. But yeah, I think it's there we go. But the joy of doing something like that, and especially if you're trying to start doing this for your own joy and enjoyment or for a career, is start picking songs you like. Pick tracks that inspire you and start playing them.
Sure.
Just play along with it, and then get that feeling of why certain things work. If you want me to pause this at some point, I can, so I can get back to talking.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So a song like this, how long did it take you to create this, and what elements went into, and what kind of time commitment are you looking at when you start something like this?
Okay, the main thing is having a good template to start with. So you want to pick out like your primary sounds. Like this song starts out with a real high, pizzicato kind of arpeggiation. So you just start with that, and then you start layering it. You start with the real high one, then I'll bed it with like an octave lower with some more effects, and then you just start adding pads. And first thing you want to do is, like I said, get a primary sound set going, so that way you can just work. So you know that when it comes time to start layering out your scene, I usually start with just a basic piano, just a real simple piano to kind of get the tone of what I'm looking for. So I usually lay out a piano, a pad, some strings, and some light percussion just to kind of set a mood. And then I'll watch the scene, and then I'll decide what it's trying to convey. Is there suspense? Is there something slightly off with this person? In that case, you make a real pleasant sound with just like a little bit of a detune or a little bit of a bend to it, just to make you feel like something's just a little off without having to really do too much.
So yeah, you're talking about making, I guess, assigning emotion to the music based on the character. And can you talk a little bit about that? When you're working with a project, when you're working with a director, what kind of direction do they give you as far as, okay, here's a scene, let's put some action in here, or here's a scene where it's very subtle. When does your brain take over as far as what kind of characterizations you want to assign to that scene? Because obviously we've seen a lot of movies without music, and then we see the same scenes that the director puts music in, and it totally changes the feel and the essence of that scene. How do you deal with that, and where do you draw the line?
Okay, well, a lot of productions nowadays, they'll use other people's soundtracks for like a demo track. So they'll cut the film and they'll drop in the random music track, and they'll be like, I want something like this. You're going to get a lot of that. But sometimes, and this is what I prefer, is they come with nothing. Mm-hmm. They come with absolutely nothing. They're like, okay, this is what I feel. Like I'm working on 3 films now, 3 completely different styles, but from the same director. And one is kind of like this sci-fi time swap thing, but it's also kind of, like thuggish and street, which is kind of interesting. It puts a different perspective. So that right off the bat tells me, okay, I need something with a little bit more of a beat to it, something a little bit more, hip, I guess, sounding. But at the same time, they want that classic feel. So I know I need to add some real strings to it, some real, flutes and horns. If that helps you kind of get that feeling out, or if that's what helps gets the image out. But when there's nothing there, I don't know, if I just kind of feel it. I can just look at the scene and go, okay, this person's going through this. This is going to happen. How can I accent that or carry it through? And that's basically all you do. You just kind of feel it. If you're a musician and this is what you want to do, like I said, hit play, turn off the sound, and play with it. Put on a piano sound or a string sound and play with it. You're going to see what works. You'll feel it. If this is what your passion is and this is what you want to do, you'll have an instinct for it.
And, both of us are big technology buffs. Obviously, I see some keyboards behind you, and
Yes.
the technology of music making and filmmaking has changed from when we first met back in 1979
Yeah.
ish. Holy crap.
Yep. Sorry.
But,
Excuse me.
yeah. But what what are some of the big leaps in technology that you've seen from a musician standpoint? I know it's a lot. It's a big it's a big question. But what are some of the ones that really make you think like, wow, if I had this when I was, back then, what are some of the things?
I'd say the software was primary, because a lot of times, especially in the 80s and 90s, a lot of it was a keyboard workstation where the sequencer was built into it. And so everything you had to do was on floppy disks in the machine. When we finally transitioned to computers where I can physically see it and lay things out, that to me was the biggest woo, because then it opened up every possibility. You could compose as many tracks as you want with as many instruments as you want. Instead of carrying these big keyboards, you had VSTs, which are virtual synthesizers.
Cool.
And they started making really good ones too. Like you can get an old Prophet, you can get the old Juno keyboards. And that's kind of what I use for my soundtracks, is I want those original sounds just passing through today's filters, which give it that huge expansive sound.
And I know I remember when I told my parents the career that I wanted to get into, which is television production.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them telling me, "Wow, you got into a very expensive hobby," and I mean, we did. It's part of technology, and I remember that. A couple of your old keyboards and some of the keyboards of the bands that we used to hang out with. I mean, rooms and rooms full of gear.
I loved
Yeah,
I loved it.
It's
But
exciting.
it was just too expensive, man. Every keyboard you figured, okay, if it's a keyboard you like, you're going to spend at least $3,000 on it. And when you're 15 to 18, that's a lot of money, man.
Hell yeah.
But I'll tell you what, throughout the years, I think both of us have done that. Instead of buying like fancy cars and nice clothes, we bought gear. We bought the things we needed to produce our art.
And your $50 Ford Pinto.
Oh yeah, which I sold for 50. Oh wait, no, I bought that for $1. I bought that dollar for $1, and then I sold the car for $1.50 to Marco.
Right. That's hilarious. You made
That's
a profit.
business, baby.
That's business. But yeah, I mean, what are some of the other things that you're looking forward to as far as gear? When
Gear-wise?
it comes to
I don't know. The gear I use presently is I use Logic along with some Omnisphere 2, which has an amazing plethora of sounds that harken back to the old classic days, which is why I like it. And then I use a Prophet, a VST, and an old Roland 808 drum machine, because that was the machine, especially for my dancey music, my more I don't know what you call it, clubby music, as opposed to the soundtrack stuff I do. But as far as, you don't need a lot. You buy a Mac, you got GarageBand, you can produce an album off of that if you take the time and put the work into it. Everything is about how much time and work are you willing to put into it. Because
absolutely.
it takes a lot, but it's also worth it. And if you love what you're doing, the work is kind of the fun, tweaking it and getting it all to sound right. I mean, like, okay, I forgot to really truly answer your question about how long it took to do that track. Because I was so familiar with it, it still took about 3 days, one day to pick all the sounds, another day to kind of really lay it out and make sure everything was right, where it's supposed to be, where things fall. And then day three was just going through, cleaning it up, and producing. Making sure that everything sounds the way it's supposed to sound. That when you play it on different systems, it's not going to sound great on one system and like crap on another one. And that's another thing you want to do when you're testing music out is don't just listen to your headphones. Go play through speakers. Go play through your HomePod. Go sit in your car, because I promise you, it's going to sound different. You always want to try to start with a flat kind of response, but it's hard to get unless you test it in a bunch of different places.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And looks like everybody in the chat is, for the most part, Halloween and John Carpenter fans. So
Excellent.
That's awesome.
I've seen that.
I've asked a couple of people to see if they have any questions. We do have one from Frank.
I'm seeing that one right now, yeah. What is the weirdest instrument you have ever used? I guess it was an invented instrument. It was half didgeridoo, half bass, I guess you could put it. But it was something that you could breathe through, and you made kind of the didgeridoo sound, but it almost acted like a kazoo. When you hit the string, it'd be like this wow, 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 and different notes and stuff like that. And that was probably the weirdest thing I've ever played. The coolest thing I've ever played, though, is a Chapman stick. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a guitar and a bass in one. Tony Levin plays it with Peter Gabriel all the time. But it's this stick, and it comes in 8 and 10 and I think 12 string configurations, where half of it's guitar and half of it's bass, and you tap it to play. Wow. It's not like you strum it. It's all a tapping instrument. So as a pianist or a keyboard player, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, Frank, thank you very much for that question. We got another question from Scott. What classic horror movie would you have loved to have done the music to? I think I might be able to answer that question, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, you think Halloween would be the main one just because it is what it is, but you can't move on perfection. So I'd actually pick something, I don't know, a bit different, like The Babadook or something like that. I don't know if you guys have seen that film. I like new stories. So like something like The Babadook or The Grudge or something like that. Something where it's a minimalist kind of soundtrack where just that one right sound will set you on fire. Like for The Grudge, it's just the you hear that and you're just like, So something like that I would really enjoy doing. Any throw me any movie, I'll be happy to do the soundtrack for it.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I do remember the Babadook. I don't remember the music for the Babadook, but I do remember, the drawing and
exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly my point. You don't remember the music for Babadook. Yeah. I would make it so that you would.
Nice.
And what's my favorite scary movie? Jesus, my favorite scary movie. Well, the one that scared me the most as a kid was Trilogy of Terror. That third segment with the little doll with the knife. That thing freaked me out as a kid, man. I mean, I watched Halloween. It didn't scare me. I watched Friday the 13th. Didn't scare me. But
we were kids. I mean, these people were, poking eyeballs out with machetes and things like that.
Shredding people to whatever. Pulling them into beds and fountains of blood. No big deal. But boy, you put a little wooden doll with a knife in front of me, and I'm like, Yeah. But yeah, and same thing. I don't remember the music, but I remember that doll. I don't know that it even needed music.
Yeah.
So to me, that was like one of the freakiest things.
What about like thriller? We've got we talked a little bit about last week about the the slasher films of the 80s, the Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. What about more of the like the emotional thrillers? What are some of your favorite like thrillers that aren't really horror, but they could kind of be pegged in that? And I,
right on.
Brad and I talked a little bit about Zombieland,
okay.
Which is, again, it's not like horror, but
right. There's just a lot of elements to it.
Like haunted movies. The Haunting of Emily Rose is also something that's kind of in my brain right now. But what about movies like that?
Well, I mean, I love supernatural stuff. So, I mean, any ghost story is intriguing to me. I mean, I like creature features like Godzilla and all that stuff too, but a really good ghost story is something to be said, because it's like, well, that might just happen.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how many times do you hear shit you can't explain?
Exactly.
I mean, it's different when you got cats and kids, but I mean, if you don't, and you're still hearing that shit, then there's a problem.
Right.
No, I like. Yeah, can I pick one out though? The paranormal ones are fun, but they're not. They don't convince me as far as like being scary. But like, I just saw something on Netflix or something like that. It was a good ghost story. It was kind of new. I'll have to research that. I don't know. I haven't watched anything very recently.
We got another question from Frank.
Oh.
What bass do you have in the background?
Oh, I have. That's just an Ibanez 4-string. Here, I'll take it down for you. Yeah, it's just an Ibanez 4-string. I use it primarily for bass. I didn't know what else to say.
And if you can count the lightsabers behind him as well. 1,
Oh,
2,
yeah.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You know me, man. But yeah, this is just, there's nothing particularly special about it other than I've been a big fan of Ibanez, and in the bands I've played with, a lot of my bandmates have played Ibanez. But I've also heard of the Warwick as well. We had a few Warwick guitars back in the day, the acrylic ones that were all like acrylic and red and see-through. I don't know who made that. Was that BC Rich, I think, that made the Warwick? Oh, that's the Warlock. God, it's been a long time. But yeah, the bass and drum are like my favorite thing.
I don't even remember if you remember the really bright orange bass that I had that was stolen.
It was Court. It was a Court.
Was it?
Wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah. I don't remember because it was stolen.
Yes, that's true.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But you got a new bass.
I do, and thank you very much. I love it.
Because
awesome.
that was, I felt that was like a bad thing. I was like, man, that shouldn't have happened. But
Thievery,
okay.
damn it.
Yes. What do you do?
All right, let's see if we can listen to another song of yours. Let's see here.
I'm trying to think of something. I really wish I could get this volume up. It's really annoying. It's right behind you. You think it'd be in this area?
No, it's on the very bottom, next to the share. You see where the play area is, way on the bottom?
Uh-huh. Am I? Is there a share? Is that?
No. It's a very bottom of the screen. There's a play next, the timeline, very bottom, very bottom. There you go, right in there, very bottom.
Yeah, it's
under there.
There's nothing under there.
Oh, it's funny because I see it.
On my. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I got lied to. Oh, hold up.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes, about this great technology that we use.
Yeah.
I swear to God, hey man, I make music. I don't freaking fight around with video bullshit. All right, so yeah, let's see. What is it, looping? Okay. Here's a little bit something different. This is a more a softer sounding song, and this was used for a death scene in the film I'm working on right now.
Nice.
But a lot of times I'll incorporate my own voice into it. Not as like a singing voice, but just like an effect.
Oh, yeah.
I see Scott had a comment about his hands got busted up. You'd still be a better guitar player than I am, my friend. I play enough to get by, but I'm not a bass player per se. I'm not a guitar player. I just play what I need to use, for whatever I need for the scene. I'll just learn it and play it. So if I need a bass, I'll pick up a bass and mess with it for hours until I get it right, and then I'll record it, and then I'll use it. So I'm sorry about your hands getting busted up, but I still think you'd be a better player than I would be, so it's amazing. And if you love it, just keep at it, just play to your abilities. But you get an idea with that.
Cool, yeah.
The different kinds of moods you can have.
So, do you have anything on there that's very reminiscent to some of the more commercially known movies like Halloween or Friday the 13th?
Let's see. I
And
did
then
a.
maybe not because they won't let you.
Well,
Well,
I can
yeah.
play you a theme, but I can't tell you what it's for. But it's for something that's upcoming. Let's see if it's this one. Yeah, it's just a real quick 30-second theme.
So I hear some like really cool voices in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the
Yes.
piano. Are the voices you?
Some yes, some no. I use when I need a female vocalist, I'll use like Omnisphere or
Oh, I know her.
Exhale.
Oh, I know her.
Omnisphere, yeah, she's awesome. She makes a great pie. Um, Phantom of cakes. But yeah, it's more of, like I said, an element. If I just need some sort of breath or something more human that's
Hmm.
not necessarily a synthesized thing, and you want to give some organic feel to it, you can use synthesized strings and horns, and you can make them sound almost real, but there's still something that makes them synthetic. So if you layer in real organic instruments over it, even the slightest bit, it will give your music that more organic and unique sound that you might be going for. Because no one else is going to have your voice.
Sure. So growing up, we kind of used to make fun of synthesized strings. How
Orchestra hits?
has the orchestra hits? How has sounds like that have they
Mm,
improved in today's
trem-
technology with keyboards?
tremendously. Tremendously. Um, like I said, I use Logic, and through Logic, I'll use another VST I'll use is what's it called? Native Instruments, and they have plugins. Which Native Instruments is like a VST workstation, so you can add different VSTs to it, and it becomes its own multi-track kind of VST station. But within it, it has some fantastic plugins like for strings and horns, which is primarily what I use for my soundtracking. But the layers of production that go into today's, virtual strings, virtual horns, virtual flutes, you can get pretty close. Like I love using horns now because now finally these big horns sound like real big French horns, as before it was like, you know, the horns just sounded terrible.
Yeah.
You could just tell it was like either it was a really cheesy old 80s film or about to be a pop song. So,
Let me ask you this because we are, obviously big fans growing up of John Carpenter and Halloween, especially him and the original Halloween film and I can't remember what year that was released. Was
78.
that 78? I was going to say 78. You obviously talked about how he was really a jack of all trades. He did a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Um, Tell me why that spoke to you as someone who is in the creative field. Why did that speak to you? John Carpenter just doing, everything.
For me, it was just as a creative person, I don't like to be limited. I don't want to be told that, okay, you have to just do soundtracks, or you have to just do acting, you have to just do cinematography. When you've got a hunger for just being a creator, you just want to do it all. And when I saw that that was actually a possibility, that I could actually make a career out of doing multiple things, well, I knew I wanted to make movies for the rest of my life, or at least be involved in the process of making movies. And so that's why that affected me so much. I saw a question here from Charles.
Yes, that's a great
Um,
question.
yeah, it is. It's a really good question.
Wes Craven's Scream series reimagined the classic 80s horror movie. What do you think of its approach to orchestration?
I
Well,
like the
first of all, I didn't know Charles knew such big words. Orchestration. Wow, Charles, that's good.
Charles is vastly intelligent, I'm sure. Um, as far as I can remember, it's been a while since I've watched that series, but I remember the music being a character in itself, which I really liked. They allowed the music to be part of the film, which is important with any film. You want the music to be an element. Sometimes you want it to be subliminal, sometimes you want it up front. But when the music itself is a character, I think they pulled that off really good with the Scream series. And they were able to lock in that whole feel and genre because of how they let everything play its part. So I don't know if that answers your question properly or not.
Yeah, definitely. I think it does. Yeah. Thank you, Charles and Pat, for that question. Charles and Pat from Conversations Podcast,
Oh, cool.
wonderful member of the Red 5 Network as well. Thank you, guys. But yes, I guess Scott was born in 1978.
Oh, so he's a youngin'.
He's a youngin'. You know what? They're all youngins. We're two old farts, man.
Hey, man.
Totally. Hey, man.
Hey, man.
Get
I'm
off
not that
my
old.
lawn. But yeah, it's again getting back to John Carpenter. I mean, what was the last movie that he released?
That he released? He did something.
Well, some of the other ones that he has released, didn't he do there was some zombie movies that he did, or not zombie, undead.
Honestly,
I don't remember.
I mean, the recent thing obviously was his most recent remake or sequel to the Halloween series,
Right.
Where he's part of it, but he's not necessarily. I don't think he's fully directing them or not. Or if he is, that's great. I gotta research that again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
One thing you'll notice is that when you start doing this for a living, you forget to watch films, and you kind of get into what you're doing. And for me, I don't like to influence myself with other things while I'm working on a project because I want it to be its own beast. So,
Good point.
For me, I mean, that other people, it may work differently. Your own path will find you. You're going to find out what works best for you if that's the genre you're going for. Whatever it is, just you got to kind of feel it out, go through the birthing process.
Sure. And I know everybody's got their own process, creative process. But let me ask you this question. While the chat ramps up with another question, what is one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self if you were to time travel back? And I know you did that recently, because here we are.
If that were the case, I'd still have hair. No, I would tell myself to stop listening to what other people think you should do with your life.
That is great advice.
If you
Wonderful.
know what you love, go for it. And don't let people drag you down or tell you can't do it, or it's too hard, or it's impossible. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible until how's it? It's only impossible until it isn't. So, and there's no reason you can't be the person to make it possible. So the main thing I would say is just follow your guts and follow your dreams. I mean, take advice, listen to those that are in the field that are successful. Don't listen to people that are trying. Don't listen to people that are, not making it, because they're in the same boat as you, whether they've been doing it for 20 years or 2. Follow your guts and listen to people that inspire you. Listen to the soundtracks, buy just the music and listen to it. Close your eyes. See if you can see what you see when you hear the music. It may be the scene from the movie. It may be something completely unique and original to you. But if you listen to everybody's influences telling you how difficult it is, you're wasting your energy battling that BS when you could be writing or creating.
Yeah. Close your eyes and feel and see what you can see. That's great advice. And, again, growing up, hanging out with you, listening to records is, something that I treasure as far as memory.
Oh, yeah.
But, now that we are adults, it's probably something that we do less and less of because we have less time as adults. I think we have less time, and I think it's one of the things that we have to try to maintain and, like any muscle, just kind of practice it and work it out.
Absolutely.
But it goes back to being inspired, and I know a lot of people in the chat, or part of the people that I deal with. We're all creative. We're all doing our own thing, and sometimes we do get in this rut. But that's one of the reasons that I kind of, curated this group of people for the Red 5 Network. We try to encourage each other and try to give each other pep talks, and that's one of the things that I enjoy about this podcast community. But Frank has another question, and I'll put it up here. What non-John Carpenter horror movie is your favorite?
Ooh, let's see. What did I see that was really good? I enjoyed what was that? Parasite, that won all
Okay.
those awards. That was a really good one because I didn't know what it was about when I went into it. For me, I don't like seeing trailers. If I'm going to see a good movie, I don't want to see the trailers. I don't want to know nothing about it. I want to walk in there butt naked mentally and see what hits me, see what happens. Because to me, that's when you can really experience it. The second you have preconceived notions on a film, you're already judging it without even having to see it. I'd rather just see the film and then come to a conclusion myself and leave myself open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
As far as a non-John Carpenter one, yeah, I'd say that was probably one of my favorites. And then I don't know. I like ghost stories. I'm trying to think of it. I suck at names.
I love ghost stories.
I see. For me, I stink at names, so I'll watch a movie like that was great. What was it? It was this thing with this guy and a ghost and the chick, and this thing happened. But yeah, I'll have to look into it. But I mean, as far as like the Babadook was good. I liked.
I liked the Conjuring series. I'm not sure about the Annabelle ones, but the very first Conjuring. There is, and everybody in the chat take note. There is a Spanish movie called Veronica that is on Netflix. If you like that sort of thing, damn, that's a good one. Watch it in the dark.
What's it called? Veronica.
Veronica.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
It's Spanish, dubbed obviously, but from Spain, and it starts out. It's a madhouse, and then one of the things, and Brad, my other co-host, mentioned it in tomorrow's episode that drops tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. We talked a little bit about why some of the scary movies are more scarier than others, and some of these films that are based on like true stories, like The Haunting of Emily Rose. And Veronica is one of them. You watch the whole movie, and then at the end, you realize, wow, this was based on actual events. You're like, holy shit! So this is something that definitely is a lot scarier because it actually happened.
Somebody lived through it, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And those are the best horrors because it's like it could happen. Those are the things that are like, oh Jesus, that could just possibly happen.
Exactly.
I saw something on here. What was it? Oh, Clive Barker. That reminds me. What was that called? Nightbreed.
Nightbreed. Okay.
Nightbreed. That was a movie that I really enjoyed, and I thought they were going to make more of because I really enjoyed all the different characters, the story. It was Nightbreed. I guess would be another classic horror film that I really dug that I forgot all about.
So Clive Barker is known really for Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that one is on my list. I haven't really never got into the Hellraiser movies.
They were fun.
Yeah,
they were. That's what I call fun horror, where it's like someone's gonna get it. It's gonna be gory as f, but you're like you can't wait for it to happen. Kind of like the Saw series or what you call it, the Final Destination series. It's like everybody's gonna die, but how is it gonna happen?
Let's talk about characters in these movies, and obviously our graphic has Jason Voorhees, and that actually reminds me, at the end of the broadcast I'm going to be giving away a Jason Voorhees action figure. So that's a lot of fun.
Wind that up with your Barbies.
Wind it up with your Barbies, yes. And I'll be asking a question right before we zone out here. But talk about characters. Obviously, I've got Jason in the graphics. We've got what are some of your favorite characters in these movies, and why? Why root for the killer?
Gosh. Well, you got to realize, in a killer's perspective, they're doing the right thing. A villain always thinks they're the hero. So for me, it's if it's conveyed in a way that like you could see the perspective of the killer. Like for Jason, you whacked my mom in front of me as a kid. First you drowned me, then you killed my mom. Kind of pissed off. You understand the motive. So, it's, you don't feel, when you see these kids acting like idiots and then Jason comes around and drops a little knowledge on them in the shape of an axe or a machete, then you know that, okay, there's a reason for this. Freddy was already a bad person. He was a child killer. And then they burned him alive. And then for some reason, he got to get vengeance on killing their kids and being burned alive. And now he comes back for that. I like a character that has a reason. I'm mad isn't good enough. Or that person pushed me in grade school and I bumped my head and I've been pissed ever since. That's not a reason. You murdered my entire family, so I snapped and I'm going to come after you and everybody you can relate to that,
I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the Punisher, you
Sure.
think about.
Oh, yeah.
So you think about the motive. For me, it's all about the motive behind. Yeah, okay, so Jigsaw. Yeah, someone said Jigsaw. They get it. Am I a George Romero fan? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. He's the epitome of making inexpensive films horrifying. I mean, his makeup obviously got terrible at near the end there, but I mean, he still was out there making movies. And that's the point. I don't care. Some of your movies are going to be fantastic. Some are going to be not as great, but keep making them, man. If it's what you love, just keep making them.
Yeah, you're talking about people behind the scenes in this genre. I grew up with Star Wars, and I know names like Dennis Muren, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Ken Ralston, some of the behind the scenes ILM folks. But what are some of the names and some of the people that in the horror genre that are equivalent to that? You've got people that do makeup. What's the guy's name?
Tom Savini.
Yeah,
he's fantastic. I've been fortunate enough to meet him on a real rant. Nothing professional at all. I was in Walgreens, and he just happened to be in Walgreens. But never did I meet a guy that was more excited to talk about the craft, more humble, and just made you feel good about talking to him. Tom
and
Savini,
he was in line getting vitamin E. No?
Right? Vitamin E and a cherry Coke. Who knew? No, but seriously, a gentleman of a man and just an amazing talent. Tom Savini, Tom Baker. I'm sorry, is that Rick Baker?
Rick Baker, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Baker's Doctor Who.
That's right. We're getting our nerds mixed
yeah,
up.
We've got a lot in us as far as that goes. Those are, yeah, I'd say those would be my equivalent as far as like makeup go-to people that have inspired me when I've done special effects makeup and stuff like that. Those were the creators of some of the best characters and some of the best effects, practical effects that are out there. And I still love practical effects. I mean, CG and stuff is really, they've come a long way, but you could still tell, man. I'm sorry. When I see a blood hit, I'm like, it's from that fucking pack, or that's from this, visual effects artist or something like that, or this program. To me, an organic blood splat is just the best. Something tactile, you can feel it gets splattered everywhere. And everybody's like, it's great.
And I know we've talked about CG versus practical, especially in this genre. We have our friend Yoshi Vu, who is a visual effects artist. He worked on The Mandalorian and he worked on The Rise of Skywalker. He also did some special effects for The Walking Dead.
Oh, cool.
And, he has shared with us some really great behind-the-scenes images of, even simple stuff like digital knives where the actors are, they've got the hilts, but they don't have the actual blade. And that stuff kind of fascinates me, especially because, when you watch a movie, you really don't know what's CGI anymore. You don't know, where the real ends and where the fake begins. So something like that, especially in this genre, because obviously you can't really, rip somebody's eyeball out. I mean, you can, but
Vapor would beg to disagree.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating. What you had pointed out something in the chat.
Yeah. Sam Raimi is another one that I feel like a fool for forgetting, because his style and the way he shoots was its own thing. I mean, that really gave me the juice to be like, cameras don't just need to be on tripods
Yeah.
to make a film. This guy is coming in at these great angles, doing these super long cuts. It's just like, so yeah, Sam Raimi is another genius.
Sure.
But as far as back to, what was the other question?
What was I saying? Oh, just about practical effects versus the CGI stuff.
Oh, the fake knives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the projects I worked on, it was that same thing. They had to CG in the blades because now, like, this is before COVID, but they don't use real blades obviously on set anymore, even if they dull them down. It's just people get hurt on the simple. You get a paper cut on set and you can sue them. It's like, so they're really cautious about what they use. That's why I like some of the lower budget films, because they'll push the envelope a little bit. I'm not saying they're using real knives, but they'll use real blood, and they'll use squibs and things like that. That when you leave the set, it's a complete mess and it's beautiful.
Yes, harkens back to when we used to put explosive squibs underneath our white T-shirts and run around the neighborhood.
With our shirts on fire.
So last week we did an episode again about horror, and it drops tomorrow morning. I made a reference to Chantel about running around with butter knives on our hands and having the police involved. Would you like to elaborate on that?
When weren't the police involved with our shoots? I mean, like, every shoot that we did.
That's really true.
But we were doing crazy stuff. We were running, getting hit by cars with fake guns in our hands. And
I mean, the police didn't know it was fake guns. I mean, we would we couldn't do that today.
No,
we couldn't do that today. No way.
We fortunately, after a while, the cops kind of knew that if it was a call and it was a group of kids, like, fortunately my uncle was a cop, so he kind of knew. But by the third or fourth film that we were making, the cops would just come up and start watching.
Yeah,
they were actually pretty forgiving for what we were doing. But I mean,
except that one time that the call went citywide and 4 of us got arrested, and the entire neighborhood. And I'll make this brief. The entire neighborhood was surrounded. We had 9 squad cars, 4 paddy wagons, 2 SWAT vehicles, and because 6 kids running around with fake rifles and guns, pretending to be cops and robbers around the neighborhood. Some little old lady down the corner looked outside her window in the alley and saw one of us with a fake rifle walking around mysteriously. Of course she's going to call the cops, but
that's how you make a movie.
Exactly. Jeez, man, that's hilarious.
Those were good times, though. I mean, we really grew up during a blessed time of filmmaking, because you really could just go out there and do whatever. Now you can, but you got to be a little bit more cautious, with your props.
Oh, hell yeah!
If
you can't do what we did.
No, we would have been shot so many times, like all the time. None of us would have survived. It would have just been a. Oh, you know what? We actually did make a Freddy Krueger glove that got taken
by the police.
Yep. It was my fault. I made this cool Freddy glove, and for some reason we got stuck filming a football game, and for some reason I thought I'd bring my glove. So, like, we're shooting the game, and I'm supposed to be paying attention to the game. All of a sudden you hear, and then like 5 minutes later you hear someone. We're gonna need to take that.
Confiscate.
Yeah, we're gonna need to take that glove from you. It's really, you're not supposed to have that. I'm like, but I made it. They're like, yeah, it's still illegal.
Yeah.
Good time.
What you can do with butter knives and a sharpening stone.
Yes.
Oh well. That is hilarious. Yeah, Scott's got a Freddy Krueger glove on his wall.
Nice.
Maybe you can post that later on and show us. But yeah. Really
show us your props.
Show us your props. And speaking of props, I'm going to ask the question in the chat, or anybody else who might be watching us in the replay, and I'm hoping that you guys can get the answer right to this trivia question. It's actually not a trivia. I guess it's just a quick question in order for you to win this Jason Voorhees action figure. It's really cool. Ooh, shree, shree, shree. Oh, it's got like a little. You can cut out the little
Oh, yeah, a little
background
backdrop.
out, and then you can put
Nice.
it over here, and then display him proudly. It comes with a machete. That's nice.
No blood?
Yeah.
Does it come
Toonie
with blood?
Terrors, Nika, Jason Voorhees action figure. So the question is, and you guys can direct message Scarif Podcast with your answer. And the first one that comes through, it will be the winner, and I'll send this out. In one of our recent, actually not recent, in one of our older episodes on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, we talked about Qui-Gon Jinn, and I wanted to ask you the following question. What was the quote that was read by Alex at the end? What is the quote that was read by Alex at the end of the Qui-Gon episode on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast? If you guys share where that, or just DM me on the Scarif podcast account. And like I said, the first correct answer, I'll go ahead and send you guys this Jason Voorhees action figure. I have a feeling who it might be, who might be the
Soylent
winner
Green
of
is
that.
people.
But we'll see what happens. But actually, that would be cool. So yeah, direct message us. Who Alex did a quote on episode 26 of the Qui-Gon Jinn episode. I just want to make sure you guys are listening. Who or what was the quote that was read by Alex over at Salty Nerd? So I think he was one of our co-hosts. So definitely check that out. Kane, any last thoughts on movies about horror?
Well, is there anybody in the chat that is curious about doing this as a living, doing soundtracks or any kind of production in film of horror? I guess that's a question I would have for the chat.
Yeah.
And as far as things to say is, I think I've said it already. If it's something you love, pursue it. Work hard for it, and don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
Andrew's got a great question, and we did talk a little bit about that in tomorrow's drop regarding older movies like Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi. You've got Frankenstein. We started chatting a little bit. You guys will hear it hopefully in the drop when you listen to the episode 65 tomorrow. We talked about Boris Karloff and Frankenstein and how Mary Shelley is considered to be kind of like the pioneer when it comes to science fiction and horror. So please check that out. Check that episode out that drops tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, definitely. These Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, and the classics. I mean, the makeup. Talk about a man of all trades, Boris Karloff. He did his own makeup. He was obviously Frankenstein and. Again, it's you had to do it not because you wanted to, it's because you had to, and it gives you that much more freedom to in the craft. So thank you, Andrew, for reminding us that horror definitely started with folks and projects and movies way back then too.
Hitchcock and all. I mean, just there's so many classics that are just.
And I just want to remind everybody we weren't alive during then. We're not that old.
No. Just after that. But yeah, the classics. I mean, you think about those films and they're beautiful because you didn't have color to kind of help bring the story to life. You had to really just go with the lighting and the emotion and the music. And those were the primary things you had to work with. It wasn't even so much the dialogue as how things looked and sounded and felt. So yeah, I mean, those classics were the building blocks of everything we see now, from horror to normal, just classic films. Black and white to me is a wonderful medium to shoot in, and if you can, try to make a little short in black and white and see what it's like to make a black and white film. You'll be amazed at yourself.
Absolutely. Scott, you mentioned Vincent Price. You might enjoy our episode tomorrow. Brad talks about Vincent Price. And
what a great
yeah, absolutely. So very cool.
I don't know if maybe I won't say anything because you guys are going to cover it tomorrow. but I guess Vincent Price's last words are about the most tear-jerking thing I've ever heard. But I don't know if that's something he's going to cover tomorrow or not. Can I say it?
Do it.
From what I understand, his wife said that his last words were, "I'm not done yet."
Nice.
And to me, I was just like, "Oh, you
man.
son of a bitch."
Yeah.
But yeah, to me,
nice.
I mean, but that's how you feel. Like, when you love what you do and you just put your all into it, you're never done.
Yeah.
You never want to retire. You never want to quit. You just keep going and, follow what that is for you.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, Kane, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been a really great discussion, a lot of fun. I hope you had fun too.
Absolute treat. And it was great talking to everybody, and I'm glad everybody came out to see what's up with the soundtrack industry and stuff. But no, it was a real treat, and thank you very much. And it's a great show you guys have.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you guys in the chat. It was a wonderful... I know a lot of Red Fivers had some live shows today. Hope you guys joined in on those as well. And if you're just finding us, catch us on the replay. But thank you very much. Don't forget to follow us at Scarif Podcast. Give us a subscribe on YouTube here. And make sure that you got the little indicator bell. Next week, we have a very special Scarif Live. We are heading back to our Star Wars roots. We asked some of our followers to leave us a voicemail, and you can still do that at 773-234-8659. Tell us what Luke Skywalker as a character means to you, and we will use it on episode or order 66. See what I did there? But we are going to have a very special guest next week on Scarif Live, Wednesday. I think it's the 27th, Wednesday or Tuesday. I can't remember which day. But check your local listings, as they say. But definitely check out tomorrow's episode drop, episode 65, where Team Scarif, all hands on deck. We're going to be talking about some of your favorite horror movies. But tonight was such a treat. We talked about horror music just to kind of continue our little kick into the horror genre. So, Kane, thank you very much.
My pleasure. It was my pleasure.
Where can folks find you?
You can go to kaneblust.com. That's KANEBLUST.com. You can find me there, or just at Caniac at whatever platform you want. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But at Caniac or at the Caniac is where you'll find me.
Excellent. And, it's always scary on Scarif, and that's the Scuttlebutt. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.